go. Hey, everyone, what's going on? Thank you for downloading the podcast yet another week. Hitting that subscribe button. Larry here.
Anthony here.
What's up?
You know. I feel like we just talked.
The huge.
Yeah,
That's
nothing new over here. And, you know, it's still warm in California.
Is it?
End of October. We're getting to the end of October.
Honestly, was it like 104 degrees the other day?
Yeah, I think it was a couple weeks ago.
Good Lord.
Yeah, Saturday I get in my car and my car's like 104, and I'm like,
oh my God.
Yeah, and people around here are like, oh, it's October, it's going to be cool. I'm like, do you guys not go through this every year? Every year, it doesn't get cool until November. Although now you may consider it cool because it's like 80, 85.
I think it's like 60-something right now out here.
I'm jealous.
And dropping rapidly.
Yeah, this is the time of year when I miss, fall weather.
Well, you've been out in L.A. for, how long? Not counting the year that you came back.
Not counting the year I came back for work. It'll be 10 years in November.
Alrighty. So I remember when you first went out to L.A., doing your thing, trying to get out, making it in the world, hitting it big, as a lot of people do when they go to L.A. to try and, as you're working, as you're trying to, offset your bills and your income, L.A., Studio City, you're not too far from trying to win money on game shows. And you tried your luck at a few of them, no pun intended.
Oh yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, I've been a game show fanatic ever since I was a kid. It's my mom's fault. But literally I moved to LA in 2006, November 2006. I landed on a Friday. That Saturday, I was at a game show audition.
The next day?
Literally, yeah. I wasn't even here for 24 hours. I was like, because I had gotten to LA and I came here, like, I moved all by myself, I didn't know anybody here. So I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm looking at, and that's when I was on Craigslist, because at the time you could still look for jobs on Craigslist because it was credible.
And without getting killed?
Right, without getting murdered. So I was looking on Craigslist for jobs, and then, I was like, all right, I moved out here for film, so I look in the TV film category, and I see game show audition, Saturday, and I'm like, oh, wait, that's tomorrow. And it was for Deal or No Deal and 1 versus 100.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay. And again, at this point, it's me in an empty studio apartment with a bed that I put together that day. And by the way, this was the first week of November, and it was 90 degrees.
Welcome to LA.
Right, welcome to LA. It's like 90 degrees, no air conditioning in my apartment.
Oofa. And
I'm watching people on the street walking around in jackets and pants, and I'm like, I'm sweating bullets.
That New York weather's still in you.
Right. So just me and my 2 cats. And I was like, okay. I'm going to do this. I go, I'm in LA. This is exciting. I'm like, I'm going to go on this game show audition. So next day, I go on the audition. And I get past the first round of auditions because
for which
at the
show?
time, well, that's the thing. They pretty much asked you which one you preferred.
Okay.
And at the time, I know that, I had known I'm more of a trivia guy. I'm not. So I was like, okay. I'll do 1 versus 100.
Mm-hmm.
So because you audition the audition is a general audition, and then they direct you if they like you.
Okay.
So what happens is you stand around a table with 9 other people. So there are 10 people surrounding a table with 2 people sitting there, and they basically ask you to pitch yourself in 30 seconds. So you basically have to be animated and cartoonish and make sure that you're giving them interesting information, because if you don't, they just send you home.
Yeah.
So I'm watching everybody at my table getting literally basically shut down because they're asking, oh, well, tell me a little bit something about yourself. And people are like, oh, well, I was born in LA and I do this for a living and everything. And, so they're just like, all right, whatever, goodbye. So I do my shtick and I give them my entire life in 30 seconds, very loud, very animated, get through the first round. And then they ask me, they go, oh, which one, which do you prefer? And I'm like, well, I'm a big trivia guy. I like trivia a lot. So they send me off to the 1 versus 100 section. And then after that, they do a written test because it's a trivia, it's based on trivia. Do the written test. And then I'm sitting there with like, a couple hundred people. We're all doing the written test. And then they literally grade the test while you're there. It was like, I don't remember. I think it was like maybe a 30 question test. And you had to get a certain amount to move on to the next round. So then they call out the names of the people who made it beyond that. So I was one of the ones who got beyond that.
Okay.
I get a call back. So it's like, okay, you guys are going to get called back. You'll come another day. Get an email, go back the next time. Now we're in a big sound stage. And for me, again, this is like my first week in LA. So I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. This is
the 1 versus 100. Yeah, right. This is the 1 versus 100. Okay, so let's back up for a second. So 1 versus 100 was a game show hosted by Bob Saget, where it was one person who was answering questions, and then there was the mob, which was 100 people answering the same question. And the idea was the one person had to outlast the mob, and every time someone in the mob got a wrong question, they were knocked out. So it would start shrinking down and down and down. So that's the purpose of 1 versus 100. Okay. So move on.
All right, so moving on. So I get to the sound stage, and now they're doing on-camera auditions. So everybody had to get up in front of the camera, and they would ask you a mock trivia question, and you would answer, and then they would tell you if you got it right or wrong and everything like that. So that's where I tripped. Because again, I'm not an on-camera person. I mean, I'm a writer. Everything that I do is behind the camera, and for good reason. So I get up in front of the camera, and and it was such a perfect setup for me because the trivia question comes up. It's a strawberry shortcake question. I grew up with 2 sisters, and so I knew strawberry shortcake, and I knew the answer to the question because they asked which character in the show is a male. There was only one male character in the show, which was Huckleberry Pie.
I was going to say, I don't remember that. Okay.
Yeah, see, and I remember that. So I'm looking at this, and I go, oh, I know the answer. So I'm like, all right. So I give them a little, and they tell you to vamp a little bit because they don't want you just standing on TV giving an answer. So I'm like, I'm really glad this question came up because, I grew up with 2 sisters. I know the show really, really well. And I know that there was only one male character on that show, and that's Huckleberry Pie. So that's my answer. Give the answer. And he's like, he's like, you're correct. You just won $100,000. And I froze.
This is the first time I'm hearing this story, by the way.
Yeah, so completely froze, and I'm standing there, and then he repeats himself. He's like, you just won $100,000. So then I'm like, oh shit. Pardon my language.
Don't worry about it.
So then I try and like act really animated and surprised, and he's like, all right, go sit down. And I'm like, oh.
Thank you. Like talking into the mic, like too close, like, thank you.
So I got so close to being a contestant on the show. However, because it's 1 versus 100, even though I didn't get to be a contestant on the show, I was a member of the mob.
Yes.
And I got to be on the game show, and I recorded that the week of Thanksgiving. So like literally within my first 3 weeks in LA, I was on television. I was on a game show.
Yep.
I did not win any money, but it was just what a great experience. Like when you first move out here, it was amazing.
You didn't get like any sort of like partying gift or whatever for just being in the mob?
No, they didn't. No, the only way you won anything in the mob is if the contestant got their question wrong.
Oh, that's right.
Any active members left in the mob would split the money that they had.
I forgot about that.
Accumulated.
But I thought you would have gotten like a little something just for being there.
I got the experience of being on the show.
Welcome to LA. Holy cow.
Welcome to LA. But obviously to segue into our topic for this week, I thought this was a great topic for us because I've been playing game show video games my entire life, which is what transitioned into me being, coming out here and auditioning. Because I've auditioned for like 10 or 12 game shows, and I've been on it 2. No, I've been on 2, and I've been in the audience for like 2 or 3 other ones. So like, game shows like in my blood. And I did win $5,000 on a game show on Game Show Network.
Oh, I remember we watched it. Oh, it's a story for a different time. We'll tell you when, but that was the best.
It was the best because I won.
No, really, you did good. Except for I remember there was one question. There was one answer you screwed up. Do you remember what it was?
What was it? The Steven Van Zandt one?
No. That's I think how you lost on 1 versus 100. No, on the Game Show Network one, it was Molotov. The answer was Molotov cocktail.
Yeah, Atola or something like that. It totally came out wrong. It was supposed to be Molotov cocktail. They said Atola. I'm like, okay.
Oh my god!
You know what? Didn't matter.
No,
still, I was very happy.
That's all that counts.
Yes, that was great. That was a great experience. Anyway, let's move to video games.
What show would you have liked to been on? But at least you got to play the video game of it. Because I can tell you, for mine, this game, I put High Rollers for the Commodore 64. We're going back now.
Yep, I had that game too.
That game ruled. Both the game show itself and I think Wink Martindale may have been the host.
Yes, Wink was.
And then, High Rollers, it's just you had a board of 10 numbers, 0 to 9. You used to roll these giant dice. So, of course, when I was little, I wanted these giant dice. They were as big as my head. And then you just had to knock the numbers off the board. I used to play that game on the PC, on Commodore 64, High Rollers.
Yeah, no, same thing with me. I loved that game. I remember... I don't know if I may still have it somewhere. Actually,
my gosh, do you? Holy cow!
Or a CD. Yeah, I got to a point when when we started to lose the floppy disk drives, where I started transferring things onto CDRs.
Oh,
so I may still have High Rollers hiding somewhere.
Oh man, if you do, send it.
Absolutely loved that game. I used to play that and Card Sharks all the time.
Yes,
on the same system.
Card Sharks was awesome.
It was always awesome.
Card Sharks were good. They always had, they're at least on the game show. I remember their questions were always, we're talking late 70s, early 80s. So, that's when sexism ran rampant on television. The game itself, just you pick a card, next card higher or lower, and very simple. These game shows back then, that's what made it fun. They was so simple. There wasn't really anything to them short of maybe a quiz show, like Card Sharks, High Rollers, Classic Concentration. I played that on Nintendo often.
Yeah, I was going to say, based on video game shows, I think if there was one I really wanted to go on, it was Classic Concentration. Yeah. But then at the time, I was only 10 years old or 8 years old or whatever it was. It's like, what was I going to do with a brand new car?
Very true. But
you just won a Miata.
Yay! Looking for your parents. Where are you?
I was like, my mom and dad could drive it.
Yeah, honestly. But Classic Concentration was awesome. I played also on a lot.
Wait! Before you move on to that, Classic Concentration was a game show where they had a numbered board 1 through 24 or 25. I can't remember. It was 1 through 25, and the object is behind every panel there was a prize. So it was and they were grandfather clocks, ovens, a ski trip, things like that. The object was it was basically like memory. You had to find the matching tiles, and then when you found those matching tiles, they would disappear from the board, and then on the board behind it was a puzzle you needed to solve. So it's basically like a phrase, but it was like Pictionary in a way. There were pictures that would formulate the words, and you had to guess the phrase to win the round. And if you won 2 rounds, you got to go to the bonus round for a chance to win a car. I just want to explain that because maybe people don't know.
It's true. It's these games, again, the simplicity of them, but nowadays with game shows, I mean, there's barely any on TV, but still.
I know, they are few and far between now.
Game shows today. But also, and then you had look, let's might as well just talk about them, get them out of the way. You have your Jeopardies, you have your Wheel of Fortunes. I mean, that's been on every incarnation of any system that's ever existed. And those are all straightforward games.
They just follow the same format, and those games I remember playing all the time to the point where the categories would repeat. So then I would always so I would win a ton of money because I knew all the answers.
That was the biggest problem with these games back then. They would repeat.
Yeah, they were limited
quickly too. They would repeat.
Oh yeah, Wheel of Fortune all the time. The puzzles, I wouldn't even have to spin anymore at a certain point because I knew what the puzzles were.
And then even when they'd come out with Wheel of Fortune, Family Edition, Wheel of Fortune Junior, Super Jeopardy, Jeopardy 25th Anniversary, they're just, and a lot of times they're just recycled with a few more questions in them because they just kind of spit out the same game, maybe a little bit of a graphical overhaul, and 100 new questions.
Yeah, see, yeah, that was all. I mean, that was always the tough thing with, especially game show games. That limitation. I mean, now, today, thanks to Xbox Live and PlayStation Network, because of the online capability, you can download expansion packs, so you can add questions to games. So they have that ability now to expand them. Back then, you just had what was on the cartridge.
Exactly, and not only that, I think I'm trying to remember if it was either like You Don't Know Jack or maybe Trivial Pursuit on the newer systems that actually like the system keeps track of the question, so it purposely doesn't repeat, which is pretty cool. I mean, at some point, you're eventually going to get to it, but it takes a while.
Yeah, it definitely does take a while. But we're talking about games we used to play as kids, and that's okay. Repetition was great.
Hollywood Squares. You remember playing Hollywood Squares on the Nintendo?
I do remember playing Hollywood Squares. And what used to amuse me about that were the lame jokes they put in that game, because they had to be so PC. Because, the actual game show was like an 80s version of Match Game, where the celebrities would have their little innuendos when they would answer their when they would crack their jokes and stuff. Of course, you couldn't have that on the actual video game, because kids are playing these games, and so it was loaded with lame jokes. Oh,
totally. And Hollywood Squares it's a game of tic-tac-toe with human beings, pretty much. Ask question, agree, disagree, and what I don't know if you realized it. Again, when you were younger, when I was younger, I didn't realize half the answers or almost all the answers that the celebrities were given were pre-written for them.
Oh, I had no idea.
A lot of them were, because a lot of them were just completely wrong answers. And if you ever go back and watch, you always see them kind of look down sometimes.
And, so they were looking at the script.
I think they would have like a goofy answer or sometimes a joke answer. And Hollywood Squares on Nintendo fell into that again. After a while, you play like 3 or 4 times. It starts repeating on you, but then you're just playing tic-tac-toe at that point.
Yeah, that's exactly what it came down to. You're playing tic-tac-toe against the computer or against, a friend that you would have over.
Exactly.
And especially if you owned the game and they didn't, you would just kick their asses.
Did you often, growing up, only child over here, and you mentioned you had 2 sisters, when you played these games, did you often get a chance to play with your siblings, with your family? Because only once in a while I'd play with my parents, not because they didn't want to play, they were busy, and I didn't have anyone else to really play with.
No, game show. If there was a game show or board game-esque kind of game that my sister and I would play all the time, it was Anticipation.
Ah, I'll count that one. Yeah, it's not an official game show, but it's like Win, Lose, or Draw, or Pictionary, anything like that.
Yeah, which we also had was Win, Lose, or Draw, which is another game show game. But Anticipation was such a great game. It was it was basically a board game where you could have up to 4 players. You would walk around on a board, and the tiles were color coded, and there were 4 colors. And when you landed on the color, it would be a screen would pop up for that color, and it was a category, so it was like science or art or something, and then a picture would start getting drawn on the screen, and the object was to ring in and name what the picture was. And once you collected all of the colors for that level, you would level up until you got to the final level where you won.
3 levels?
There were 3 levels, and then you win.
Yeah.
So you would be competing against 3 other people. And whoever won. And it was just such a simple concept for a video game, and it was just so much fun. Also, because on NES, it was probably one of the very few games that had 4-player capability. And
not only that, I think it was maybe the first almost original board game on the NES.
It probably was, yeah. Or maybe it could have been the
one of, yeah. Anticipation was very fun. Anticipation was cool because, the first level, maybe the first 2 levels, it was connect the dots. But then you get to that 3rd level, and there was no dots. And
there were no dots.
You couldn't guess at first. Yeah, exactly. Double Dare. Do you ever play Double Dare?
I never played Double Dare.
Double Dare was a game show. First of all, I wanted to be on desperately. Obviously never did. But
if we were friends back then, we would have been.
Maybe. Fly all the way out to L.A.
I wasn't in LA when
actually they are. I think they're bringing. They're doing.
Where they filmed it? That's right.
Yeah, they're doing a Double Dare. No, maybe in Florida. Actually, now I think about it.
No, they're doing a Double Dare Thanksgiving
reunion.
Week, aren't they?
Oh, is it? That's what it is. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving week. They're doing a special 1 episode of Double Dare with Mark Summers as the host.
30th anniversary. Oofa.
Yeah. I actually hope it's just like almost like a pilot pitch, and if it does well, they'll bring it back because that would be awesome.
That would be awesome. And I feel like either Buzzer or Game Show Network, I think, is going to start airing Double Dare.
Oh, that would be
great. Now, there's another game show called Double Dare that has nothing to do with the one that we're going to talk about, which is also currently on either Buzzer or Game Show Network.
Okay, we'll leave that alone. There's no video game related to it.
Yeah.
Getting back to the Double Dare.
Double Dare, both on Nintendo and on Commodore 64 when I had it. Mm-hmm. Oh, God, it was horrible. It was a button masher, but it was like one of the button mashers that like you had to run A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. You know what I mean? Just keep tapping them. Yep. And some of the games, I never figured out how to do any of the physical challenges because the instruction booklet never really explained how to play the game. And whether it's the keyboard or the controller, my guy would just stand there for 60 seconds and that was it.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, it was horrible. Fun game to watch, horrible game to play.
That's unfortunate.
You mentioned last week American Gladiators. That,
yes.
Great game show, great television show.
I mean, Saturday mornings were like, when we were kids, I think we had the golden age of Saturday mornings because
agreed.
Saturday morning cartoons in the 80s were fantastic. You had Transformers, you had G.I. Joe, you had GoBots if you were so into that, you had Voltron. They were like so many fun game shows. And then you would cap it off with WWF Superstars
noon
at 11 a.m. and then 12 o'clock was American Gladiators. Yep. And American Gladiators was a game show where, all right, think about. I'm trying to think of like an equivalent to today.
Well, they've had American Gladiators in the last 5 years.
Oh yeah, that's right. They have done that. So like American Gladiators are 4 people, 2 men, 2 women, are competing in different challenges against the gladiators, which are like the beefed up super people. And one person would win and move on, and then eventually somebody won like $50,000 or $100,000 at the end of the whole
something like
thing.
That. Yeah,
but. Yeah, I remember owning the video game for NES and...
Uh-oh, hold on. Oh, boy. We have technical difficulty, folks. We are recording live. Okay, I'm going to pause it here, so we'll be right back. All right, well, we're back.
Hello.
Technical difficulties are resolved, so
thankfully,
I think we've got to pay the Skype bill.
Yeah, oops, that's my bad.
All right, well, let's get right into it. Let's pick up right where we left off. You were talking about American Gladiators, and we were talking about the video game American Gladiators. It really didn't play like the game show.
No, it did. I mean, it had
elements.
The challenges. Yeah, no, it had the challenges from the game show, and it did play like the game show.
No. You skated through. You had to save somebody. The NES version, that is, at least.
Oh, okay. The Super Nintendo version was like literally a lift from the game show.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the Super NES. Yeah. Well, you're right. The NES version was a side scroller.
Yeah, I was gonna say because in the Super Nintendo one, you did 6 challenges. Mm-hmm. You did 6 different challenges, and then you did the final challenge, which was the last maze run through thing.
Yep.
So the Super Nintendo version was by far more, was by far superior because it was exactly what the game show was. Yeah, the NES one, I feel like they took a side scroller and just turned it into American Gladiators.
Oh, by all means, they sure did.
Yeah, they were just like, oh, let's just do this. But yeah, like I remember like on the Super Nintendo one, like playing the wall where you're climbing a wall and you had to get to the top before the gladiator caught you and pulled you off, and things like that. I remember Swing Shot, which I could never get right. Where it was a first person thing, and you'd have to swing into a gladiator and try and knock them off their pedestal.
Yes,
I always screwed that up. And then Joust, where you were jousting. I mean, there was so many fun games on that. Again, I think I still have it, the SNES game, and I love. Yeah, there's just something about that game. I just love playing it.
Do you remember a game? First of all, do you remember a game show called Roller Games? Maybe Rock and Roller Games.
No, it was Roller Games, and I watched it every week. It was on Saturday. Yeah, they played it. It was on Saturday.
There was a video game, right? Based on. I'm trying to remember because when you talk about American Gladiators, I'm thinking of this game.
Yeah, I remember renting that game from the video store. Roller Games, and after a while, it was just kind of like, Well, at the end of the day, you're really just skating in a circle.
Well, yeah, it's roller jam. Everyone knows roller jam. It's just, everyone on roller skates beating each other up. But it actually had, like, roller games was kind of like a WWE version of legit roller derby. That's a roller derby. That's what I'm looking for. But roller games did the video, because I don't remember playing the game. I just remember of the game. Now, in the actual show, if there was a tie, they would have these skaters called the Gator Skaters, and they would go around the track once and then try and throw each other into a pool of alligators. Do you remember this? I remember this.
I don't remember that part. I think you're on your own.
No, it really happened. I'm looking even at the thing. As a tiebreaker, two skaters would skate around. I'm getting phone calls. Involve traditional robo-derby elements, and then a pit full of alligators. And they called them Gator Skaters.
You know what, though? Back then, you needed to do what you had to do for ratings, okay?
But
I don't think that transitioned into a video game.
No. It did, but I don't think the Gator Skater part did.
Not the Gator Skater.
No, not at all. And then, really, the other, as far as the old school systems, because there was more game shows that came out later, Family Feud, it was kind of the other big one.
Yeah, I remember, again, Family Feud I had on Genesis, I think. No, I think I had it on both. I think I had it on Super Nintendo and Genesis at some point. I don't know why, but I used to love that game show, except the one flaw in the concept of you would win $5,000, right?
Yeah.
That was originally then they made other things where you can win like up to 10 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're splitting that amongst 5 people. What do you? I mean, I get it. It's like $5,000, but I'm like, you're each getting $1,000.
Well, back then, that was probably pretty big.
It wasn't that long. No, I'm like even.
Oh, even today? Oh.
Even today, it's like the most you can win is like 25, and I'm like, okay, $5,000's at least better. I'm like, but it's not that great. Anyway, but I remember the Super Nintendo and Genesis version was the Ray Combs version.
Yes.
Of the late Ray Combs. Mm-hmm. The Ray Combs version of Family Feud with the bullseye round.
Yes,
start,
I was just thinking of that. Yeah.
Yeah, which allowed you to build up more money for your team before you got into the actual Family Feud game. And that was fun.
No, that was.
I enjoyed playing that game, and that game to me was different enough. Like, I don't think I played it enough where it repeated like crazy, but eventually it would repeat.
Yeah.
Like every other game. But going back before we move anywhere else, I have to bring this game up before I forget. NES had a game based on an MTV game show.
Oh, yes.
Called Remote Control.
Yep.
And Remote Control was a game show where 3 people competed against each other. It's basically a trivia show. Music trivia, of course, because it was MTV, and back then MTV focused on playing music videos.
Yep.
With occasional shows here and there. And the 3 contestants would sit in recliners, and they would choose a channel on the television, and that channel had a category, and then you answer the trivia questions in that category. The key thing with this show, where there were 2 things I enjoyed about this show besides the music trivia, was 1, it introduced the world to Adam Sandler. Yeah, because Adam Sandler was the goofy. He wasn't. Yeah, he was like the goofy sidekick on the game show. And then the other thing was when you finished a round, or when you got to the final round, only 2 of the 3 contestants would play. Whoever had the lowest score would be eliminated from the final round. And what they would do is, when the person got eliminated, their recliner would turn all the way backwards, like it would go all the way recline and go backwards, and they would tumble off of it and fall like into the ether, and there was like smoke would come out and they would disappear. And I just always found that funny, because I'm like, wow, I go, that could hurt. Just fall wrong. Anyway, so they made a version of this game show on the NES, and they did it exactly the way that it was, in all of its awfulness. And I still own it. I still own the actual NES cartridge. And I just remember having fun playing it. And, it was just a cool idea to have a game show focusing just on MTV music videos.
Yeah, right. No, it was a fun game show. That was a renter for me. I rented that. Definitely, that was on my high list of renting often. So, but it's someone else. Do you remember the host of that show? I'm trying to remember the host of Remote Control.
No, the name that keeps popping up in my head is Kurt Loder, but he was MTV News.
Oh, Kurt Loder, good lord!
And I don't know why I'm thinking of him. So, but I remember the guy who was the host would always he would always have these little snappy comebacks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Ken Ober. Nope. Ken Ober was
Ken Ober.
Nope. Oh, maybe Ken Ober. No, I think that's the guy who created it. Ken Ober. Also, Colin Quinn, the comedian Colin Quinn, got his start.
That's right. I remember
on the show as well.
Colin
Yeah,
Quinn being on the show. Yes.
Wow. Actually, later Colin Quinn originally, and then Adam Sandler, Dennis Leary was even kind of on the show for a little while.
Oh, I don't remember Dennis Leary.
And Carrie Wurr, where is she from?
I don't know.
Wurr. Oh, she was in Eight-Legged Freaks and Sliders. She was Maggie Beckett.
Oh, she was Maggie in Sliders?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Nice.
Cool. That Remote Control was definitely...
That was definitely one I wanted to bring up because I just remember... I mean, it wasn't a good video game. Let's just...
No. Great show.
It was not a good video game, but... Yeah, but it was just fun, especially at that time when MTV was so huge back then.
Mm-hmm.
To have to just play that game that was based on music videos was fun.
Yeah. And then there was a game show game... there was a few game show games not based on game shows, just were game show-like. Sort of on N64 had Chef's Love Shack. Yes,
Chef's Love Shack, which I actually owned on the Sega Dreamcast. I didn't own it on N64. It was... I don't know if it was on N64.
Yeah,
it was definitely on Dreamcast.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I remember buying that game because, again, it was like you had 4 players because it was Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Cartman as the contestants. And of course the questions were racy like the show. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. It's just and of course at this point, South Park was at its pinnacle. They had the South Park game on N64, which was like a GoldenEye kind of game where you would run through South Park and throw stuff at each other.
Yeah.
But I remember playing Chef's Love Shack, and that was another one. But it was definitely a poorly done game. It was one of those games that they were rushing it out. It was one of those games. Let's rush it out and just make a buck on it because we're doing so well.
It also had it was a game show / Mario Party type game. That's really what it was.
Yes, it did have mini games involved. Yeah. And you know what? Bringing up Mario Party, I mean, I think especially we've been talking game shows, but also in a way board games. The Mario Party games were probably some of the most successful, original board game concepts.
Oh, no doubt.
For the video gaming industry. I mean, in fact, they just came out with number 10 on Wii U. Wii U has Mario Party 10. Yeah. So there have been 10 Mario Party games.
At least there's a couple on Game Boy that aren't numbered, so there's a bunch of them.
Those I have the first 3 on N64, and those are kind of hard to come by now. They're hard to find, and I know they're a little pricey, but they were definitely worth. I remember getting blisters in the middle of my palm because a lot of the things involved you taking the joystick and moving it in a circle.
Yep.
And to do it faster, my sister and her friends and I would just put it middle of the palm and just circle it around quickly, and I just burned through my skin.
I think that's why they only did that for the first Mario Party game. And I remember someone selling Mario Party gloves that had protector on the palm.
Yeah, you literally needed a glove because you were ripping your skin off. But man, let me tell you something. We could not stop playing that game. I remember we would play bumper balls nonstop. Yeah, that mini game where you were just on top of a ball bumping into each other trying to throw yourself off an island. Hysterical.
There was a lot of good board games too, which we'll get into later. But kind of Monopoly was a game show. Monopoly, of course, on various systems. Never really, actually, now that I mention it, not the game show version was never a video game version. So never mind on that one with Monopoly. But you would think there'd be more. Press Your Luck didn't come out for home console until the Wii, which I'm shocked.
I know there was a PC version I downloaded at one point in the mid 2000s, somewhere around the mid 2000s. Somebody made that I think High Rollers and a few other ones, like just out of nowhere all of a sudden. But yeah, no, they would. Yeah, they would. Considering how popular Pressure Luck was, you think somebody would have. Yeah, you think somebody would have licensed that at the time. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe it was just timing. They couldn't get the license. But maybe they just couldn't get the license.
That too. Well, yeah, I guess you're right. But it would have lent itself such an easy game to do on the Nintendo. Couple of trivia, not even trivia questions, couple questions, and then just a randomizer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe the idea, maybe the reason why a lot of those didn't wind up becoming video games is because those game shows aired in prime time for adults. That's true. The time when we were playing video games, video games were for kids. Except with some exceptions, but that's for the most part. So that maybe that's why only a handful of them got made. And to be honest with you, the ones that did get made, I mean, I don't think any of them were wildly successful. I mean, maybe your Jeopardies and Wheel of Fortunes, but when you talk about your classic Concentrations, High Rollers, Card Sharks type of stuff, I mean, I don't know how well any of these did, and that could be why we didn't see that many. And
I think they probably didn't do well because of even back then everyone knew just about the repetitiveness. So
yeah, and that was the thing too. It's like you knew you're buying a game that's just not gonna lend itself to repetition very long.
Yeah,
But to go into more, because I can't think of that many more.
There's really none that I can think of.
The only other one that popped in my head. I mean, you mentioned You Don't Know Jack.
Yeah.
You Don't Know Jack's been around since like the mid '90s, I think.
Yep.
I had like 3 or 4 versions of it on my PC, and I loved that game. The insults were great. The questions were fun.
Yep.
And I know they have a version now on Xbox Live and
they had it on PS1.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I know they had it on PS1 also, but
like nowadays, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it still exists, which is really cool. But there was the only other game show one that I remember playing on, and it was on PC, was The Weakest Link.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that game show?
Yeah,
I love that game.
I had it for PS1. I had it for PS1. Yep.
I had it on PC. And I bought it on PC specifically because it had more questions.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But the concept of that game was you had a very snooty British host who would insult you when you got your questions wrong, and there were like 7 or 8 of you who would answer in the round. And the idea was to build up money by getting questions right consecutively. And if somebody got a question wrong, if they didn't bank your money at that time, your money would drop back down to 0, and you'd have to start over again. And then at the end of the round, everybody had to decide to vote somebody off the team. And you would do that until it got whittled down to the final 2, and then you went into the final round, and whoever won the whole pot that was raised throughout the game. Great show, great concept. Again, the host was great. I think her name was Ann something.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was Ann Robinson or something like that. I can't remember her last name. But she would use that wry British dry humor to just insult the hell out of the contestants, and the video game did that really well, especially on PC. It was really interesting to see, especially when she would pick on me. I would always laugh.
And then of course, you are the weakest link. Goodbye, and just off you go. Millionaire.
So Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Yep. They made a bunch of those.
Oh yeah,
they made a bunch of those from I think PlayStation On. Right?
Yeah, totally. I had it on PS1, and it was a fun game. It was just straight trivia. That's all it was.
Yeah, I forgot which one I had it on, but I did have it. And then of course, when I moved back to New York, I don't know if I told you this either, but when I moved back to New York, they had moved Who Wants to Be a Millionaire to Stamford, Connecticut.
Oh, I remember you told me. Yeah.
Yeah, so I auditioned for that game show with my mom. We didn't wind up passing the test, but we wound up in the audience, and then they picked me to play a mini game that they were doing mini games like at the end of the show, mini trivia games. So I got on that show and I won like $250
You should make a movie just about you going on all these different game shows and your life winning money on the road.
No, I know. I should really make a list of all the ones that I've auditioned for, because I'm telling you, I've auditioned for like 10 or 12 different ones.
I think we'll talk about that on the other show. That'd be fun.
That's
I'll
another
get you
thing.
on my show.
Just other games that I've played, like game show board game ones. Trivial Pursuit, I had on Sega CD.
Ooh, yeah.
Back when Sega CD was a thing for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I remember just enjoying that because Sega CD was like the first like CD system.
Pretty much.
It held more questions, so that was kind of cool. And then one of my favorites on Sega CD was Star Wars Chess.
I would call that board game. Yeah, I gotcha.
Well, it's a board game. It's not a game show. It's a board game. But but the cool thing about that concept was it's a Star Wars themed chessboard. But when you would take a piece, when you would attack your opponent and take a piece off the board, there would be a little mini battle between the characters, and they would fight. And then, of course, if your piece was going to win, it would win, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and there was some violent death scenes actually in that game.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, because Darth Vader would take out his lightsaber and literally chop you in half. It was great.
Yeah, it was.
It was some great. There was some great stuff in there. I loved that game.
Board game wise, as far as on the systems, really just Monopoly for me. That was, and the Mario.
Clue. Clue was one of my favorite.
Ever played Clue on the home system?
Clue is one of my, and I'll still play it. I'll still play it on my Super Nintendo because I absolutely love it. Clue's one of my favorite board games of all time, if not my favorite board game of all time. In fact, I collect different versions of Clue.
Oh, do you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I have
I know you liked it.
Yeah, I have 4 or 5 different versions of Clue.
Wow.
And so the SNES one, the cool thing about it is you would play the game. It's literally the board game. And then when you would make your accusations, it would run a little animation with a story. So, if you said like Colonel Mustard in the ballroom with the knife, it would go to a cutscene and you'd be in the ballroom, and then it would give you a little story on the bottom where you're searching the room. And then it would tell you, all right, the knife is not in the ballroom, or Colonel Mustard didn't have the knife, or whatever. And you would do that, and then eventually, you would play the game all the way down to the end.
Interesting.
So absolutely loved playing Clue on Super Nintendo. I know they made it for 360. It was on one of the Family Game Night.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I never bought that one.
Yeah.
But I just always go back to the SNES one. That was super fun. They had it on Genesis too.
Oh wow! I don't remember Clue, but that's cool. Great board game. So
it's a great board game, and I'm a big board game player.
Yeah.
So I just bought it. I just bought a new one yesterday. It's Back to the Future.
Really?
Yeah, it's a Back to the Future board game.
How does that play? Please tell me there's a bowling ball in it.
No, unfortunately, there's no bowling ball. Where? Oh, it's in the trunk of my car. Is
it new or is it old?
No, it's new.
Oh wow!
It's a new board game. Basically, it's about achieving. Ultimately, you have to achieve the most victory points throughout the game, but you do that by traveling through time between 1955, 1985, and 2015, and completing events that are supposed to happen in those timelines to keep the space-time continuum straight.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it was actually really cool. We tested it out. My friends and I tested it for a little bit last night. It was a bit clunky because it's a new game.
Yeah.
But, I'm looking forward to playing that out. It was actually really fun.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. We have to do a special edition episode of board games because you definitely have a ton of them. So
I know. I don't know if we can go for 3 hours.
No, well, that's all the time I have on this thing anyways, 3. So
okay, perfect.
And with that, I think we're going to... So any game shows you wish they made into video games? I know for me, it was Press Your Luck back in the day.
No, Press Your Luck was definitely, for me, that needed to be one. If there was any way for them to make Match Game into a video game, I would have loved a Match Game video game. But again, you definitely couldn't put those insults into a video game.
I don't know if you're allowed to put Charles Nelson Riley on a video game.
No, I think it's illegal. No, and I'm trying to think of because video games started to. Game shows started to kind of slowly fade away. Yeah. I mean, Pyramid was another one that I never saw as a video game that I thought would have been fun. I mean, granted, I think now
that's a little tough, I think, to do.
Yeah, now, you can play. They had Prices Right on Wii and Press Your Luck, like you said. I was but those types of games like Pyramid would have been fun. Password would have been fun. But I agree with you. Press Your Luck was probably the one that I would have loved to have played when I was a kid.
The go-to. Alrighty. Yes. Well, with that, now I'm going to want to go and watch Buzzer, watch Game Show Network, all these TV shows now with the game shows.
I'm just going to go. I'm going to go research and see if I can audition for something.
And with that, folks, thank you very much for listening. Go watch your game shows. Go play your game show games. Follow us everywhere, especially on the Facebook page. We'll catch you next week. Good night, everybody.